Indirect questions. This lesson can be found in Book 2, Lesson 19. Indirect questions are subjunctive clauses. An indirect question is a dependent clause, meaning it cannot be a standalone sentence. The main verb that introduces an indirect question is a verb of asking, knowing, saying, perceiving, etc. Examples: I asked her what she was doing. I can explain what I did. All were thinking, who did this? The main verb of an indirect question is in the subjunctive mood, and the subject is in the nominative case. An indirect question is introduced by an interrogative word in both English and in Latin. For example, quis, who? Quid, what? Cur, why, etc. If the indirect question requires a yes or no answer, the Latin word num is used to introduce it. Like other subjunctive clauses, indirect questions will follow a sequence of tenses. Do not worry too much about this. Most of the time you'll use the right tense instinctively. If the main verb is in the present, future, or future perfect tense, called the primary tenses, then the verb of the indirect question will be in the present or perfect subjunctive. If the main verb is in the imperfect, perfect, or past perfect tense, known as the secondary tenses, the verb of the indirect question will be in the imperfect or past perfect subjunctive. Now we are going to compare direct questions and indirect questions. We have seen and used direct questions since the beginning of Latin 1. Direct questions use the indicative and translate without any special rules. Direct questions are independent clauses and can stand on their own. Direct questions can easily be identified because they are often placed in quotations or a first-person narrative. A direct question is exactly what the speaker said, same words and same word order. Indirect questions are subjunctive clauses, and the verb of the indirect question is always in the subjunctive mood. Indirect questions are dependent clauses and need to be introduced by a verb of asking, knowing, saying, perceiving, etc. Indirect questions capture the idea of the speaker, but not the exact words or word order. Here are some examples of both direct questions and indirect questions. Direct questions. Cujus liber est? Whose book is this? Ubi ibitis? Where will you go? Indirect questions. Miror cujus liber sit? I wonder whose book this is. Puer rogat ubi eatis? The boy asked, where are you going? There are many similarities and differences between indirect statements and indirect questions. The similarities are that both are dependent clauses that are introduced by a head verb. That is a verb of asking, saying, feeling, etc. Indirect statements follow the accusative plus infinitive construction, meaning the subject of the indirect statement is in the accusative case and the verb is in the infinitive form. However, it is translated using the indicative, which is what we consider normal in English. Indirect statements do not have an introductory word in Latin, but are commonly the conjunction that is inserted in English. Indirect questions have the subject in the nominative case and the verb in the subjunctive mood, and in English it also translates as the indicative, again, what we consider normal. An indirect question is introduced in Latin and English with an interrogative word. For example, quis, who, quid, what, etc. The following are examples of indirect statements and indirect questions. Indirect statements. Is extimat se optimum esse? He thinks he is the best. Tu senetis eam victoram esse? You feel that she will win. Indirect questions. Scimus quis sit? We know who he is. Nescio quid habeas? I do not know what you have.